Welcome to selfdiscoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of An Author's Kiss right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest today is Mark Thompson. We're going to be talking about his new book, Age of Consent, about a young man that had an affair with his teacher. Age of Consent is a daring, tender novel that challenges assumptions about romance, power, and the boundaries of that first love, its risks, its sweetness, and its lingering imprint. Mark Thompson delivers a story that resets easy judgment and stays with you. As Sonia Pilcer notes, the book moves not through scandal, but through her humility, where desire, conscience, and vulnerable collide. MJ Moore adds that this is no Mrs. Robinson's trope of orthodox mythic love set in the experimental 70s, where kindred spirits meet beyond stereotype. So how much of this is actually Mark and how much of this is this character Rusty? Well, this is what we're going to be talking about today. Age of Consent. That's always a controversial story, isn't it? And also when we're looking at young people, they are very much wanting to experiment, explore, and dive into things sometimes without thinking. So let's find out why he wrote this book. What was his inspiration? And is there a warning for anybody young out there? Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you.
So where did this story come about? Before we came on air, you said a lot of where you were born, how you were brought up, etc., is the foundation of the character Rusty, but the experiences that he experiences in the book are based on fiction. So it's a faction book. But where did this story come about for you, where you feel I have to write this?
Well, it came about kind of a strange roundabout way. I read this article from some writer. I don't remember who it was. It was a few years ago. And he was lamenting the lack of erotic fiction for young men or adolescent boys. And that sort of triggered a thought in my head. And I came up with this idea of a boy having an affair with a teacher. So ultimately, I set out to write a story. It began when I was on a layover at an airport someplace, and it's the funny thing is that when you so many times I think writers they tend to they set off to write novel A and they come up with novel B. And my story is not an erotic fiction story; it's a love story. There's only one sex scene in it.
Mhm.
But that's ultimately what happened. That's how the story sort of came about.
When we look at it, there's many a time that a young man kind of gets the hots for the teacher, and it's kind of the teacher isn't the mother role, but represents, very often perhaps a young, beautiful woman in themselves. But that's kind of the experimental age, that's the inquisitive age, and that's where kind of a longing starts happening, and all the hormones are screaming. And a lot of the time where common sense seems to leave the room. So, having, how many times do we see this in real life, teachers and students having an affair and sometimes really quite young. And, but for you, it's not about the scandal so much, but about the experience, the love story between them, kind of the first experience for this young man.
Yes, but of course, the threat of scandal is always
Yes.
there. The threat of being found out is always there. And eventually things do kind of come to a head without giving away the plot of the book,
Hmm.
uh, you know, he does get in trouble, towards the end, and
So
so
what,
does
he's
she.
about 16 at this time?
Yeah, he's 15 when he first meets her,
Hmm.
but he doesn't get intimate with her until he's 16.
Hmm. When you look back in the past, uh, 14, 15, 6-year-olds were getting married and reproducing. That was
True.
that age. And it's only really in the last century so that, we now deem um, people still kind of children until they
Hmm.
reach the age of 18. But the instincts within us, the neofundical instincts in us haven't matched that rule. So it is, for someone to have those desires and them be overwhelming and beyond the common sense, you understand in a kid. But it's always what is in the teacher's mind. The teacher knows that she shouldn't be doing this. So, how did you come about writing about this teacher and making it that she knows it's against all common sense, but
Yeah, it's funny. When I was her age, 24, the idea of being with a 16-year-old girl was just beyond the pale for me. Then again, when I was 24, I was working in an office job and I was working with people my age or older.
Mhm,
I had no interactions with teenagers at all. And so I was imagining, if you are that age, and you might find a student that you might find attractive, and if there's definitely a chemistry between
mhm,
you, and that person is looking at you with starry eyes,
mhm,
um, I could see where somebody might be tempted to take things a bit further eventually. Maybe not
mhm,
right away, but as they get to know each other better, sometimes the guardrails come down.
mhm. I mean, look, let's face it, not only the chemistry, but also kind of that soul connection can happen at any age, with any age. It doesn't discern whether you're young or old. There's that connection is there. And clearly
Hmm.
they both feel it, not just the chemistry, but obviously connection. To both know this is wrong, but I am so drawn, I can't deny it. So you kind of often wonder, if you haven't been in those shoes, of how powerful that pull is to kind of,
Yes.
dismiss all the logic behind it and immerse
Mm.
yourself into it. So it has to be something that's very strong.
Yes. And I think that tends to happen a lot more with teachers who teach probably liberal arts subjects because an English teacher would be talking about stories, about conflict, about
Mm,
love, and about life. And I think you're much more likely to connect with somebody when you're having these sorts of conversations.
hmm
I'm sure it's possible to have, a connection with a math teacher or a science
mm,
teacher, particularly if the student has an interest in that. But,
hmm
I tended to, since I'm more of a liberal arts kind of person, that was my
hmm
strong point as a kid growing up. I could see myself connecting with teachers a lot easier who taught those subjects.
Although this story isn't about you falling in love with a teacher, did you have a teacher at all that you looked at and go, "Oh, I wish I was older"?
Yeah, there was a gym teacher I remember in high school who was I found quite attractive, and she was young. She was in her 20s. It's funny, I've looked at my high school yearbook photos, and some of the faculty members. Looking back now, I mean, they were in their 30s and 40s, and I find them attractive now. But when I was 16, they were just beyond
Old.
the pale, right? But a young teacher, fresh out of college,
Mm,
that was someone I would certainly feel drawn to if she was very pretty.
hmm Yeah, I mean, what makes you think that obviously the chemistry and everything else they're drawn to the teacher, but there must have been, I mean, is this an all boys school or are there girls there? How come he didn't turn to other girls?
Maybe, I'm sure he did. I mean, I certainly was attracted to girls my age and who were a grade or two older or a grade or two younger. But sometimes, adults can be a lot more interesting. They've
Mm,
had life experiences that they could talk to you about. Um, you could probably talk to them about things that you wouldn't normally be able to do with a girl your age.
mm. And there's also something about being heard and being seen, where somebody
Yes,
older can kind of see you and hear you, where with somebody that's your peer age, they're still in discovery. So, don't really have that life experience yet to talk about.
that's true. And yeah, so I never had such great conversations with girls my age for the most part. Um, I did have some female friends, but I wasn't really drawn to them romantically. Um, so to find I never found someone I was really drawn to romantically that I would have these kind of conversations. And that really didn't happen until after college, really.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, some people who it kind of made that way and some people not. And some people, well, it's about, you know, giving time and focus to career. And that takes all your energy. And for others, well, that heart is something that's constantly looking for a heart match, right? And then
Hmm.
of course you've got some people where it's all just about sex,
Yeah.
right? And then that's all they're thinking about, which, a lot of the time at that age, um, because again, back to history, that's when they were reproducing. So you needed
Hmm.
the hormones to be kind of screaming at that point, so they would reproduce to keep humanity going. And it's how do you switch that particular clock off and say, right, buckle down now. You've got a career to
Yeah.
build, when the desire is so strong. So I've had three children. So I remember, they kind of felt a little bit like The Exorcist, the head spinning around, at those times, with all sorts of things. And it's a hard thing to navigate as a person and hard thing to navigate as a parent. Do you bring the parents into this equation here? Like, did the parents ever begin to see what was going on, or how did they get found out?
Yeah, the dad suspects in the story. He just has this feeling. He has no idea. Rusty, my protagonist, has no idea how his father suspects or knows, but he could tell that he does because he's asking like really pointed questions about
Hmm.
his relationship with Carla, the teacher. The mom is sort of blissfully ignorant until the very end,
Hmm.
but the father clearly knows something is afoot.
So is it him that outs them, or is it something at the school? Because you
Uh,
always have another nosy teacher at the school that likes to be in everybody's business.
yeah, actually, it's a housemate of the teacher's that
Ah.
ultimately outs her.
Hmm. And we've seen headlines always all over the place, when this happens, and then people scream child abuse and this, that, etc. And what they don't really understand, yes, she should know better. He is a minor, um, but physiologically, not so minor, right? And it
Hmm.
really makes it very, very difficult. And I can imagine, what went down then, because everything that they had between them now gets, cut and drawn and slaughtered, and demeaned, and in a way that's kind of sad. Yes, it was wrong age-wise. Did he really have all his cognitive to actually agree to this? But at the same time, if they really did build up a love chemistry, then it's like, who are we to deny people love?
Hmm. Yeah, and that's a dilemma that I kind of explore
Hmm.
in this in an age of consent. At one point there's a scene where he's Rusty is wondering, since when is, loving somebody wrong?
Hmm.
When is it a sin? Why is it a sin?
Yeah. Hmm. So, other than obviously brought up in the same place and maybe the same interests, and you've made this a fictional story, but how much of you is Rusty?
Well, his personality certainly is me, I think.
Hmm.
And I was kind of a shy, awkward kid growing up. Um, the novel mentions his past. He had been bullied quite a bit in junior high school, during middle
Hmm.
school, as I was.
Hmm.
Um, in one scene, he attempts to intervene in an altercation when he sees a kid get bullied because it reminds him of what he had gone through.
Hmm.
And so there is that. His interests, his athletic interests, his musical interests, are very close to mine. Um, and like me, he had a friend who was very troubled. Had a lot of psychiatric and drug and alcohol issues.
Mm.
And my best friend unfortunately had one of these issues. Um, so. So there is that.
Mm,
So a lot of the novel is, autobiographical,
mhm.
except for the affair.
Right. And, getting to the friend with, the issues, you kind of wonder how somebody can go from here to suddenly dealing with either alcohol or drugs. And it's like, I do believe that the hormones change so radically at teenage years that it can trigger something. And not,
Hmm.
mentally, physiologically, I feel that it becomes something that can switch something on, and then there the turmoil and the trouble starts happening. And you can't rationalize with drug addicts or, somebody
Hmm.
needing that drug. There's always a root cause that we need to go further into. But sometimes it just simply, I think, could be something in the, the growth factor that gets switched on that we don't know about. And
Hmm.
because why does somebody suddenly go from there to there? And then the
Hmm.
drugs become the escape, and the drugs become the be all and the end all, and very
Yeah.
often the end all. Right. So it's that's kind of interesting in itself and sad. I see it where I live, lots of young people bent over from meth and not able to straighten up, and you kind of wonder how did they get there. So do you put
Hmm.
that character in your book at all?
Yeah, oh yeah, he's a prominent part of the novel. I mean, it's the big subplot of the
Hmm.
novel is his relationship with his friend Larry and his Larry's decline, and Rusty's trying to cope with this.
Hmm.
Um, and he's concerned about him, but he just doesn't know how to help him.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the trouble.
And
Nobody knows how to help, right?
yeah, and the sad in towards the end of the novel, his friend commits suicide.
Mm,
Um, Thankfully, in real life, my troubled friend is still alive, and we're friends on Facebook, so
right.
he's doing okay.
Good.
But you know, um, but in
Some
the
people come
story,
out of it and some people don't. And
yeah.
it's so sad because you're just seeing people decline in front of you. And I would imagine in the storyline, seeing his friend go through this and feeling rather helpless, and then
Hmm.
having an ear with the teacher that is sympathetic and supportive, it would also make the bond between them even stronger.
It does. They do talk about um, him a lot. She has concerns about him. She doesn't really approve of the friendship, though she understands why they're such close friends.
Mhm.
But she's very worried that, as she puts it, that he's going to drag Rusty down. He's going to drag
Mhm.
you down.
And this is the sad thing is that we really need to be there for people at this crisis. And if you are strong within your own character, your own self, you're not going to be dragged down. But maybe you can
Hmm.
stop somebody from falling down. And
Hmm.
a lot of it is no, 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 guilty by association, or if you're hanging out with them, you're doing drugs as well. And it's let's have a little more compassion, and let's,
Hmm.
let us as a group support somebody going through something, because most of the time they're in it because they feel alone,
Hmm.
right? And so I
Yeah.
think we need to change the way we approach that. And I know we're trying to protect our children, but at the same time, if you have all of the children around that one person that's troubled with compassion and understanding, maybe we could help them navigate through it.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that is something that's always rather rocky, isn't it? But so, you've got this story. This is your first book or
My second.
your second?
My first one was called What Makes a Man Run, and it was published, I believe, 2018. And it's about a young man who experiences a tragedy. He loses his wife in a car accident, and he takes up running, and he discovers a real talent for it, and he becomes
Mhm.
a competitive runner.
A Forrest Gump.
Well, he's a lot smarter than Forrest Gump.
When you
He's a
kind of look at that,
physical,
you go, wasn't Forrest smart?
yeah.
Like just
Well, in
not
his own way,
academically.
yeah.
Yeah.
He was
But
definitely on the spectrum. Maybe, he was kind of on the spectrum in a way.
oh,
But
absolutely.
no, my protagonist is a physical therapist by trade.
All right.
So, yeah, he's very much a functional guy, but he's got a lot of inner turmoil and guilt, and he's trying to build his life back up.
Hmm.
and running is kind of the way that his ticket, back to sanity.
Right. And I think, whether you have turmoil in your life or not, loss in your life or not, find that something that takes you out of the pain, the anxiety, the fear, the everything else that sets you free. Not
Hmm.
drugs,
Right.
obviously, but an activity that removes you from that side of you and immerse yourself more and more into that, because then you bring more and more of that tranquility back into your everyday life.
Hmm. Yeah, there's one point in the novel where, in Age of Consent, where Rusty says, when he realizes that running and playing guitar are the two activities where life makes sense, as he puts it.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think we all need to find that something. I think
Yeah.
that is the thing. But why do we, look for things in all the wrong places? Because we're not paying attention to those things that are speaking to us and saying, look, pick up that guitar, put those running shoes on. This is where you'll
Mhm.
find yourself. And we all
Yeah.
need to find something that brings us home to self.
Hmm.
So what brought
Absolutely.
about that, the Running Man one? What brought about that one?
That one, it's funny. I was watching the New York City Marathon on TV, and this runner by the name of Mev Koplevsky, difficult to pronounce. He's Eritrean by birth, but he's a naturalized American
Hmm.
citizen. He ended up winning, and he was the first American to win in um, something like 18 years,
Mm,
that particular marathon. And I was watching this him win, and it sort of triggered off this idea of kind of like a redemption story, or kind of like Rocky for runners
yeah.
type of thing. I'm of a certain age. I grew up
Hmm.
watching the Rocky films. I mean, the
Yeah.
first one came out when I was 14 years old, a very
Hmm.
formative age.
Hmm.
So I was kind of brought up watching those things, and it kind of triggered off this idea of, this young man after a tough time takes up running and discovers a real talent where he's competing at a world-class level.
Mm. And being able to leave his troubles behind. It doesn't mean they're not there when he gets back, but it means that if you're clear-headed, clear-hearted, you can deal with things in much different level. So
Yeah.
yeah, we all need to find that something, the people, a lot of the people I interview have had some of the worst things that have happened to them in life. But they
Mhm.
made a choice to find their courage, find their strength, find their abilities, and step into their meaningful purpose. Then they understand what happened to them was happening for them and what
Mhm.
they were meant to do with it. That was the life lesson, what to do with it, and who do you become because of it. And there the
Mhm.
choice lies, right? There it lies in whether we're going to give up and give in and go the destructive way, or whether we're going to embrace the journey and take it and discover what's at the other end. But I think a lot of it is that attitude. And obviously, that character embraced, obviously started off as kind of a therapy and then ended up being, I'm facing this challenge and I'm going to win.
Mhm. Yeah.
Couldn't win over his wife, could win here, right?
Yes.
So, and we all need that in our lives. We all need that triumph that where we, whatever the quote the finish line is that we did it. We did it. And I think that's kind of strengthens us as characters as, in our lives. So with young Rusty, obviously being found out, do you take it beyond the reveal as to what happens to him afterwards?
There is an epilogue chapter. The final chapter is him as a young adult in the 1980s. And he, I don't want to give away too much of the final
No, people
chapter,
got to get the book.
obviously. Spoiler alert. But he discovers that his long lost love is in the city, in New York City, giving a reading. He sees her name on a bookstore, and the reading's for the next night. So he goes to that reading,
And then what
and there's a
happens there?
big.
You have to read the book.
That's correct. Yep.
I think, I don't care who we are, man, woman, binary, or anything. We all love a love story. And we all
Hmm.
love that, where love wins out in the end. And even though they may have been separated, that for him, a first love that's so deep and so true. And I think that, we never forget the first love, whether it was
Hmm.
good or bad. We never forget it. And it feels like in this story, it was good until they got found out. So it's kind of a love story that, not necessarily with a teacher, but we want to know that that first love story meant something because it really kind of becomes the catalyst to everything else.
Hmm. This is true. And, I've looked at other novels that involved um, adolescent boys with older women or vice versa. A lot of people ask me if this novel is like Lolita, and which it is not. But one common thread with novels like Lolita, um, the piano lessons, and the reader, um, all of these novels involve people who are haunted by their first love.
Mm,
You never forget your
hmm.
first real love.
Right.
And and Rusty was definitely haunted by
Yeah.
this. After he was found out, he was really unable to have a meaningful relationship or really fall in love with another
Mm.
girl or woman because he couldn't stop thinking about Carla.
They never came to a conclusion. They were ripped apart. So that love is still lingering.
The love is
It,
lingering, yeah.
right. And so, you either need, a conclusion where you can, let go. But if it's ripped apart, it's like the love is still there, just losing its
Yes.
connection. And I think this is something, a lot of the time parents try and break kids up, afraid of teen pregnancy or he's not good for you or blah, 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 and then rip them apart. But what they're doing, the heart is still attached. And unless
Hmm.
you bring things to a conclusion, it lingers there. And as you said, can ruin any type of connection with anyone else because that love is still very strong for that other person.
Correct. Yes.
So I can imagine, how that last chapter goes, but you've got to read it, folks, to find
Yeah.
out.
Yes.
And that, kind of begs the question of he's older now, obviously she's older, um, got some life under the belt, and it's like, how you carry a torch for someone and
Hmm.
and then you meet them again and go, oh my God, is that the person I carried the torch for? You know,
Yeah.
and you realize that all this time you've kind of built up a bigger illusion as to what you wanted them to be, as to what they really are, and then kind of becomes a shock when you
Yeah.
do actually rekindle or get to meet them again. So we don't know if that's going to be the case or not. People have to read to find out. Um,
Yes.
how much of the love experience for you went into the book?
Well, my wife is my muse.
Hmm.
She is 16 years my senior.
Mm,
Um, the major difference is that I was 30 years old when I met her and started
right.
dating her. So I was well into adulthood. I'd had plenty of other girlfriends before, um, but she was the one I fell in love with
Right.
and married. Um, and of course, the issues were different.
Mm,
She was previously married. In fact, she had just been separated from her husband. Um, and so there wasn't even a separation agreement yet,
mm,
let alone a divorce.
right.
She has three kids, all boys. And so when you're in a relationship in your 30s and 40s,
Hmm.
periodically these relationships are package deals because
Yes.
many people that age have kids.
Yeah.
Whereas Carla at 24 was single and
Mm,
didn't
yes.
have a child yet.
I imagine kind of a lot of that, your wife being older than you, kind of became a little bit of what you refer to in the book. Obviously, you brought some of that essence in the book because I'm sure that you went through a certain amount of ridicule marrying somebody older than yourself. If it was the other way round, it wouldn't make a difference. But when it's this way round, there's always that scrutiny.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah. I don't know if I went through ridicule, but I certainly people questioned me.
Hmm.
What are you doing with a woman so much older and who has kids? Why can't you find someone your age?
Hmm.
Yeah, I got a little bit of that, not a lot, thank God, but yeah, I got a little of that. Um, and my response was, well, I'm in love with her.
Right. Yeah. I mean, love doesn't go by age bracket.
It
or
does
color
not, no.
bracket or sex bracket. It just, when love loves, it loves
Yeah.
what's on the inside, not what's on the outside, or not, the age bracket. And we actually need a great deal more love in this world. And I think if we could get off our high horse about dictating how it should be and allow it to be what it needs to be, there will be a
Mhm.
great deal more love and less dissatisfaction, less disconnection, and more harmony in the world. Because we do not have enough love. Because we're always telling people who and how and what and way that they should love. And that
Mhm.
is just a societal dictation that, quite honestly, is harming us as a nation. I do agree when a person is young, you do have to scrutinize, you do have to monitor, etc. Um, but I think for the most part is that we really do need to allow love to grow, and stop being so stigmatized on it.
Mhm. This is true. And, you know, I also might remind you that the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, married his high school teacher,
Hmm.
and they're still married.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, and then again, when that love is strong, you can't argue with the heart. When it's, um, you've got some people that will think it's from the heart, but then it's more of an obsession. Um, and you get to know that, the infatuation as opposed to the real love. That is something time will reveal. But when it's that real love and that heart connection is there, it's strong. It's very hard to break. And
Hmm.
uh, and also, if you do lose it the first time around, really hard to find again.
It is. And yeah, my character in Age of Consent, he really, he the epilogue is 6 years after, that relationship, and it recounts those 6 years as being really hard for him
Hmm.
because he was never able to connect with another girl after that.
Hmm. Yeah, because the heart was still occupied.
Yeah.
We don't get enough stories like this, actually. And when we do, we get them in a way that it's one of disgust and distaste and condemnation and everything else. But we don't get the story where it is about love.
Hmm.
It is about true love, not just somebody manipulating. Um, and again, you can't argue when the heart ignites. It doesn't know the age bracket, as you know. Um, Obviously, as I said, we have to protect young people. Um, but at the same time, it's you could monitor that relationship and make sure that it doesn't become obsession, but rather still heart. To rip people away from heart just because of age, I feel is hard. That,
Hmm.
not that I am condoning underage marriage, or I mean, I was 16 when I was out there on my own. And then when I had my
Hmm.
first love, right? I was working already. So I kind of deemed myself as an adult. Looking back,
Yeah.
what did I think I knew? Right. But at that time, you're like a sponge absorbing life, taking it all in and growing up very, very quickly in many ways. And in other ways, you're still very much the child. So
Hmm.
I do understand there is that dichotomy there. But if, again, I think it is interesting to see at the end of the book. Please don't buy the book and go to the ending first. Read the book. You're going to spoil yourself if you do, but read the book and go on the journey and then let it reveal itself. Um, but again, we do need a great deal more love in the world. So you've written these two books, and now you've got the book bug. Have you got another story in mind?
I do. I have a novel that I'm working on called Working Class Triathlete,
Mm.
and it's about a male nurse who takes up triathlon when he discovers that his long lost daughter is a world-class triathlete.
So he's
And
he's of a different age altogether to be taking it up.
yeah, this is a middle age. The
Uh,
the protagonist is early middle age, like
right,
I'd say probably 40-ish.
right.
And but he has a past. He's a person who is a recovering drug addict and has a lot of ghosts that he has to kind of exercise. And so that this novel is a lot about, it's not just about the triathlon, though that is a big part of it, but it's about his struggles from his youth and trying to overcome, those issues and trying um, to get a relationship with his daughter.
Hmm. Yeah, and we don't realize for people, I have another genre called um gosh, I've gone blank for a moment there. What do we call it? It's about addictions, nature of addiction. That's what it's called.
Mhm.
And whether people are addicted to drugs or addicted to sex or addicted to work or addicted to chocolate or addicted to alcohol or addicted to sports, the addictive nature is in all of us. And it's like,
Mhm.
how do you find the balance? And you very often find somebody that's had an addiction in one area and they go, I'm going to get clean, but now the addiction is the triathlon,
Yeah.
and it's like, how do you find the balance in life? Because life is about balance. It is about
Hmm.
doing something not obsessively, but creatively in a way that supports you and gives you all that you need from it. But it's, always begs the question, when somebody has had that addictive nature so strong, is this just another addiction, or is it really him trying to find himself and
Hmm.
connect with his daughter? So I imagine it's going to be quite fascinating to go down that journey.
Yes. Yeah, I've known a lot of people who um, I've been a runner for many years and a triathlete for almost 10 years.
Hmm.
And some of my fellow competitors are very driven people. You
Mm,
could sort of tell there's some sort of demon that's driving them forward. They're very obsessed with, getting a good result
hmm.
in a
It's all about the
race.
results. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about the results. Yeah. And I can relate to that. I'm sort of guilty of that too, in a way. I want to do well, just like
Hmm.
anybody else. Um, but sometimes I've seen some people I kind of suspect it's a little less than healthy in their case.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I,
I remember um, one person who was a friend of mine who was an Ironman triathlete. Um, he was he came across his daughter's drawing. The daughter was in kindergarten, and the picture depicted the family all together except for the father who was out on a bike, like way out yonder someplace. And he felt like really bad, and he realized that his training was taking time away from his family, and so he
mm.
resolved to correct that. So he
And
still
there goes
races.
the balance. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, he still competes. He's still out there, but you know, he sort of curbed it a bit. He dialed
Right.
it down a notch, as we say.
Yes. And that's the thing is like, obviously, if the race is coming up, you need to give it your all beforehand to make sure that you're at optimum. But on the day to day, it's like everything has a place. Everything in your life has a place, and you've got to make sure that everything is being getting the same kind of attention at different times and not like, one thing is getting the attention and you're too exhausted to give the attention to anything else, or
Hmm.
becoming so obsessed that that's all you can think of and you don't see what's in front of you. Life is about balance. It is about everything has its place. And we can step into that place at that time. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to give it my all here. And then when I'm not there, I'm going to give my all over here. And we've also got to remember to give your all to yourself at some point for your own replenishment. So, yes, I'm glad you're going down that way because, especially I think people that have faced either health challenges or addictive challenges, um, redirection, they pour themselves into that new direction like 100%, fifth gear all the way. Where's the sixth gear? And they've forgotten actually, you actually have to go through the process of the first, second, and third gear and the fourth gear to actually
Hmm.
understand how to navigate your vehicle. And if you're just so busy trying to get up into that top gear, you're missing out on the lesson that you're meant to be learning along the way.
Hmm.
So
That requires some patience, and not everybody has that.
no, no. And I think if you don't have it, it's something you have to learn to get.
Yeah.
because guaranteed what you're constantly chasing will never come about or never stay about because you haven't rooted. You haven't set
Mm.
the foundation for something to grow on. I used to be like that. I used to be the hare. I see a
Mm.
vision and I wanted to build it. Everybody can come. I knew exactly how it was going to make everyone feel. Come on, everybody, let's do it. And I
Mm.
didn't have the foundation because I was rushing ahead. I'm now the tortoise. And being the tortoise, slow and steady, I get to meet all the people that are the roots, that are the foundation to what needs to grow. Is it slower? Yes. Is it more meaningful and more depth? Absolutely. I think that's what people forget when they're chasing after something, right?
Hmm. That's correct.
So when does this next book come out?
Well, I'm still halfway through it, so I haven't finished it. I'm nowhere near finished it with it yet. I've been sort of you know involved with the marketing of
Hmm.
this book, Age of Consent. I've been sort of busy with that, book launch parties and
Uh-huh.
that sort of thing that comes with a new book coming out. So I've been kind of focused on that. But when things die down a bit, I'll go back to the this novel and finish it.
What's your writing process?
Well, it varies. I mean, I'm recently retired, so a lot of writing now is probably in the morning after I've done my workouts and after breakfast. Um, in the old days when I was working, I would think about during my morning runs, I would think about what was going to write and sort of hold it in my head. And then after work, I would bang out a few sentences before my wife called me downstairs for dinner. That was the first novel, What Makes a Man Run. That
Right.
was basically a few sentences before dinner novel.
The crawl
Um,
before the run.
yeah,
So now, of course, you've got that freedom, so your process is very different.
it is different. Yeah, though running uh, any kind of exercise is really good for creativity, at least for me. And also being bored, just get that cell phone out of here and
Yeah.
don't let it tempt you and just let your mind wander. I think that's another um, essential for creativity, for
Yes.
creative thinking. Um, I think I think the phone really kind of kills it. It's such a distraction.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. Um, it's a brain sucker, but I also feel very often is get out of your head and listen with your heart. Listen with
Yeah,
your soul because I've written myself and my brother's a professional author and I've interviewed many authors and they said that when they start writing they have a particular identity in mind but then that character takes on its own form. It's no longer coming from their head, it's coming
yeah,
from another place and you allow that character to evolve and become, and very often it kind of becomes so much more than you originally anticipated.
yes, that's true.
And that's when you really are in the flow. And there's a lot of people, come and write your book. We'll lay out all the chapters, and you're going to write this today and write that today. Well, creativity doesn't always work that way, does it? Not on
No,
demand. It's like when it comes, it's like get a notebook, write it down, or get onto that computer or typewriter and get it out there.
yeah,
Because when it comes, it's really very powerful.
yep, it does. And you never know when it comes. It's going to
No,
come.
middle of the night for me.
Yeah,
Come on, let me sleep.
yeah.
Um, so now you've got the freedom to kind of just write. And I mean, did you ever set out to be an author? Was this just something that kind of came about for you? That, the story was so strong you knew you had to get it down.
Yeah, I never, since, writing is now was something I didn't start until I was in middle age, like I was in
Hmm.
my 40s when I started What Makes a Man Run. Um, I kind of wished I was a writer. Sometimes, it was part of me, and I was always telling stories in my head
Yeah.
to myself. And then, amazingly, I fell in love with a woman who's a novelist. My wife is a novelist, and she's been in the business, way longer than I have. She's been in the business for decades, really. Her first novel was published in 1978. Um, so, I had somebody I could sort of, bounce ideas off of and give
Mm.
me feedback. And
Yeah.
so, when I realized this, it was like, well, why not give it a go?
Yeah.
Give it a try. So, I wrote a first draft and she liked it and gave me a lot of feedback of what I
Hmm.
needed to do. Um, and eventually I went into a writer's class and got more feedback,
Hmm.
which was really helpful because it needed a lot of revising. I was a
Hmm.
rookie, I was a greenhorn.
Hmm.
I really didn't know what I was doing. Um, and um, and so it took some other people to set me straight in a lot of ways, and thank God they did, because I think, the book came out real. It wouldn't have come out as good as it is if it wasn't
Hmm.
for, the feedback from others.
And we all need that.
Yeah,
You've got the innovative ideas and the characters, but you need, the certain structure in order to build it on. Otherwise, if it doesn't have the right structure or foundation, it's just going to crumble. So,
yeah,
and that's what's really important is to make sure that there is that foundation there in which to build from, that it's solid build up. And what you don't want is somebody reading something and go, hang on, didn't that happen in chapter something? Go, I'm a little lost. Why? Is there a chapter missing here? Because
yeah.
suddenly you're going into another place, and it's like, no, it's not congruent, and so we need that outside voice and eyes to see something that sometimes we miss because we're so immersed in it.
hmm Yeah, we are our own worst editors and our
Mhm.
own worst proofreaders, and
Yes,
yeah, you just need another set of eyes, preferably several sets of eyes.
yes, exactly. What kind of books does your wife write?
She tends to write stories. It's more women's oriented fiction. I mean, the protagonists are
Mm.
women for the most part. About relationships. Her first novel, An Old Friend from High School, was about her falling. It's a story about a woman who falls in love with her best friend. It's a gay relationship.
Mm.
Um, and she's a straight woman who ends up falling in
Mm.
love, embarking on a gay relationship with her
Again,
old
that
friend.
heart, right? That
Yeah,
heart wants, yeah.
yeah. And others involved, families, issues, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
But yeah, she's had several novels, a collection of short stories. She also wrote a memoir because she's a lifelong marijuana smoker, and
Ah.
she wrote a story called "Just Say Yes," a marijuana memoir. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, again, it's got such medicinal purposes.
yeah,
Again, it's something else that we don't understand that we blacklist, and again, it's something else that we need to be cognitive of. Just like picking up a drink and drinking it, marijuana is the same moderation. Know
yeah,
when, and when not to, and we love to villainize everything. And I think
yeah,
that it's, let's just kind of take a breath here. Uh,
yeah,
excess in anything, excess in anything is bad for you, right? Again, it's
yes.
back to that balance.
Yeah, and she wrote it during a very interesting time. It was about 10 years ago or so when marijuana was starting to just get legal, or there was a
Yeah.
movement to legalize it, at least for medical purposes as well as recreational. But it wasn't quite there yet, but the movement
Uh-huh.
was there. So
Yes.
it came out at a really interesting time. And she got invited to speak at various events, at rallies,
Hmm.
what have you. It was a real fun time for her and for
Great.
us.
Yeah, exactly. And that the thing is, writing is such an intimate thing. It's between you and your characters, right? Until it's
Mhm.
down on the book, it's your baby until it's out there, right? And when
Yeah,
it's out there, you just don't know how people are going to receive it or perceive it. And it's like you have to let go of that. You have to let go of what people are going to do with it or think about it. You'll get feedback from people that get it. And, just like book clubs where people share what each they got out of it, I always ask people to do podcast clubs, listen to a podcast, share what you got out of it. Suddenly you've got a rounder picture. And it's like
Mhm.
you're going to see it from this point of view as it resonates to you. Somebody else sees it from another angle. And let your eyes open up and see how everybody else receives it. Because I think we've become so narrow-minded that when we open up that mind and go, oh, you see it that way, that's interesting, it opens up our whole perspective.
Hmm.
So I think people need to have these books where they, have it in a book club, chat about it, and learn from it,
Hmm.
which I think is very, very important. My mottos of my show is listen, learn, and apply. And the application you can do here is actually in buying the books. So where can people find your books, my dear?
I have a website. It's markthompsonauthor.net, and you'll have links to both my novels.
Right. And of course, they're on also on Amazon where they can
They're
get
on
both.
Amazon. Yep. You can
And
get you can either get them in hard copy or in Kindle.
right, great. And I think it's something relatable to everybody, really. Whether you know it or not, whether you've had that experience or not. It's like somebody along the line that has, and really, quite honestly, it begs the question of what really is love.
Hmm.
If when do we know when it's really true and deep? And again, we can't just blanket things. We need to go deeper into it. So you've got Mark Thompson, THOMPSON author.net. You're on Facebook, Mark Thompson, Instagram, Mark Thompson Runs, and the
Hmm.
book can be found on Amazon or on the site. Um, Christmas is around the corner. I always think that books are a wonderful gift to give because they keep on giving. You give somebody a book, they read it. What they've got from that book is a gift that keeps on giving inside of them, or sparks a conversation, or gets somebody else to read the book because they were inspired by what it did for you. And
Hmm.
then the whole thing is that conversation after reading something and expanding the story, which I think is very important. So Christmas is coming, folks. You could pick up both of his books and give them to a friend for Christmas, and it will make a great gift because it keeps on giving. It's not like a box of chocolates. You gobble
Yeah,
them up and they're gone. It's something that people can sit there with the chocolates while they're reading the book.
there you go.
Thank you so much, Mark, for being here today and sharing. You never know, what journey we have in front of us until we're inspired to explore and take a leap of faith. And here you are, 2 books in, third book on the way, and I'm sure there'll be lots more down the road.
Hmm.
Kind of baselining, obviously, with yourself to really give it that solidified foundation, but taking topics and stories that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And I think that we need to talk about, we need to be aware. And
Hmm.
fundamentally, it's all about the heart and love, isn't it?
It certainly is.
Thank you so much for being here. And remember, folks, go out and buy the books, both of them. And I'm sure you know somebody who is a runner that would really enjoy that one. Uh, Maybe this is a great book to give your teacher for Christmas,
Yeah.
right? Especially middle school teachers. Um, Whether they are tempted or not, I'm sure they'll get a big kick out of it as well. So you
Mhm.
have no idea what a book is going to do for someone, but gift one, gift one. And don't forget to read it yourself. And what did you learn from it? And how can you use it? Because there's always something we learn from a good book. So thank you so much, Mark.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Until next time, folks. Bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tag at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.